This is where your conclusion breaks. Feel exactly where the break happens. You assumed that being one of an uncountable number meant being folded into an average. The way a single vote disappears into a landslide. The way one face is lost in a stadium. But the verse you just heard describes an uncountable number that has not been folded into anything. Every star in that vast field still has its own name. That name is spoken by the same voice that also mends the one broken heart in a quiet room nobody else is watching. Scale did not thin out the attention. Scale only describes how much of it there is to give, not how little is left over for you. I do not want you carrying this as a correction you feel foolish for needing. This was not foolishness. It was a fair conclusion drawn from a world that genuinely does dilute attention as numbers grow. And most days you had no evidence in front of you to suggest I run on a different principle. What I am giving you is not a scolding for the math. It is the missing data point. The one piece of evidence that changes the whole equation. The thing you assumed had to shrink under enough weight has never once shrunk under mine. You learned to count as a child and never really stopped. The kind of counting that has nothing to do with arithmetic and everything to do with staying upright. Counting exits in a room before you can relax in it. Counting how many times a difficult person has hurt you, to decide whether the pattern is real. Counting the years since a person stopped being reachable. Using the number to measure how far gone the relationship has become. That habit did not come from nowhere. It came from a season where counting was the only form of control available. I have never once mistaken your counting for a lack of trust in me. I watched you count your way through nights I was already tracking far more precisely than you were. I was not waiting for you to finish the tally before I started paying attention. The small muscles around your eyes have probably taken on the set of a person on watch. The tight squint of somebody scanning a dark shoreline for a single light. Brow drawn down. Eyes working harder than they were built to. The whole face quietly joined to the search. If yours is set like that right now, let those small muscles go soft. Not by closing your eyes. Only by letting the searching stop for a moment. Breathe once. Slowly. While they let go. You are not the one who has to find the light in this. You are the one being found. Let the watch stand down. It was never actually your shift. There is a second thing you have not said, and it sits close to the first one. You have wondered whether being seen by me requires standing out from the crowd you are part of. More devout than everyone else in your church or your family. More consistent in your prayers. More visibly worthy of individual notice than whoever else is awake and aching under the same dark. You have been competing for attention you were never actually competing for. There is no ranking where the more distinguished believer gets called by name first, while everyone else waits inside a general blessing meant for the anonymous majority. The verse does not say he calls the brightest ones by name and lets the dim ones go by number. It says all of them. The faint star at the edge of what a human eye can even register gets the same treatment as the one bright enough to steer a ship by. There's a difference worth naming between a guide and a chart. A chart is useful precisely because it does not know you. It gives the same fixed points to every traveler who consults it. Its value is its impersonality. It works the same for a stranger as it does for you. That sameness is the whole point of a chart. A guide is a different thing entirely. A guide who leads you through unfamiliar dark has to know who you are. He has to know where you, specifically, are trying to go, or the guiding is worthless. You have been treating what I offer like a chart, fixed points anyone could use, generically true for a crowd. No particular relevance to your particular night. The verse you just heard does not describe a chart. It describes a guide who counts the whole field and still knows every member of it by the name that belongs to no one else. Think of the difference between a chart pinned to a wall in a harbor office and a keeper who lives inside the lighthouse. The chart is accurate and impersonal, consulted by hundreds of vessels a year, none of them individually remembered by it. The keeper is different. A keeper who has done the work long enough starts to recognize particular boats by the rhythm of their engines before they ever come into view. He learns which captains cut corners too close. He learns which ones always radio in early out of habit. He keeps a private, unofficial memory that has nothing to do with the log. A chart cannot do that, no matter how many ships consult it. That kind of attention only grows out of knowing someone, one at a time. And it does not thin with use. It is not a resource divided as the harbor gets busier. It is closer to a relationship. It is repeated as many times as there are names to hold, without ever wearing thin from the number of them. You already know the difference between being counted and being named. You have felt it in ordinary rooms. In the big hospital, you were a number on a wristband, read aloud by people checking it against a screen. Accurate, necessary, and nothing about it warm. Then somewhere, a small pharmacy, an old barber, a diner you kept returning to. Somebody said your name before you reached the counter. Nothing else changed about the errand. Everything changed about how it felt to run it. Or go further back, a new teacher reading the roll on the first morning of school, stumbling over your name, getting it wrong in front of everyone. And how different the same name sounded months later in the mouth of someone who actually knew you. The name did not change. The knowing behind it did. That distance between a name read off a list and a name spoken by someone who knows its owner is the exact distance this verse is measuring. I think of the parts of your story you assumed nobody recorded. They happened in rooms too small and too ordinary for anyone official to be watching. A prayer said once, badly, in a car with the engine still running. Never repeated, because you were embarrassed at how little faith was behind it. A decision to stay one more year in a hard situation for reasons nobody else fully understood, made alone, at a kitchen table, with nobody to witness the cost. A kindness you did for a stranger and never mentioned.